Another startling revelation by geologists. Primordial helium from billions of years ago appears to be leaking out of the Earth's core. Ancient primordial helium was forged in the wake of the Big Bang, is leaking from Earth's core. This is what scientists reported in a new study. There's no cause for alarm, they say. Earth is not deflating like a sad balloon. What it does mean is that Earth formed inside a solar nebula, which is a molecular cloud that gave birth to the sun, and detailed about our planet's birth that has long been unresolved. It also suggests that other primordial gases may be leaking from Earth's core into the mantle, which in turn could yield information about the composition of the solar nebula. Helium on Earth comes in two stable isotopes. By far the most common is helium-4, with a nucleus containing 2 protons and 2 neutrons. Helium-4 accounts for around 99.99986% of all the helium on our planet. The other stable isotope, accounting for just about 0.000137% of Earth's helium, is helium-3, with 2 protons and 1 neutron. Helium-4 is primarily the product of a radioactive decay of uranium and thorium, made right here on Earth, and by contrast, helium-3 is mostly primordial, formed in the moments of the Big Bang, but it can also be produced by the radioactive decay of tritium. It's the helium-3 isotope that has been detected leaking out of Earth's interior, mostly along the mid-ocean volcanic ridge system, giving us a pretty good indication of the rate at which it escapes the crust. The rate is about 2,000 grams a year, or that's 4.4 pounds a year. About enough to fill a balloon the size of your desk, explains geophysicist Peter Olson from the University of New Mexico. He says it's a wonder of nature and a clue for the history of the Earth that there's still a significant amount of this isotope in the interior of our Earth. What is less clear is the provenance. How much of helium-3 might be emerging from the core versus how much is in the mantle? This would tell us the source of the isotope. When Earth formed, it did so by accumulating material from the dust and gas floating around in the newborn sun. The only way significant amounts of helium-3 could be inside the planetary core is if it were formed in a thriving nebula. That means not at its outskirts and not as it dissipated and blew away. Olson and his colleagues, geochemist Zachary Sharp at the University of New Mexico, investigated by modeling Earth's inventory of helium as it evolved, first as it formed, a process during which the protoplanet accumulated and incorrupted helium, and then after the Great Impact. This astronomer thinks is when an object the size of Mars smacked into very young Earth, sending debris flying into Earth's orbit, eventually recombining to form our moon. During this event, which would have remelted the mantle, much of the helium locked inside the mantle would have been lost. The core, however, is more resistant to impact, suggesting it could be quite an effective reservoir for holding on to helium-3. In fact, this is what the researchers found, using the current rate at which helium-3 is leaking from the interior, as well as models of helium isotope behavior. Olson and Sharp found that there are likely 10 tetragrams, or 10 to the 13 power grams, to a petrogram, 10 to the 15 grams, of helium in our planet's core. This suggests that the planet had to have formed inside a thriving solar nebula. However, several uncertainties remain. The likelihood of all the conditions being met for the sequestering of helium-3 in Earth's core are moderately low, which means that there may be less of the isotope than the team's work suggests. However, it's possible that there is also abundant primordial hydrogen in our planet's core, caught up in the same process that may have accumulated helium-3. Looking for evidence of hydrogen leakage could help validate the findings, the researchers say. This was published in Geochemistry, Geophysics, Geosystems, and it's on Science Alert by Michael Starr. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.